I used to sort of maybe envy in a way, seeing your normal person who just likes to, or even what you call like a weekend warrior, going out on their run on a Sunday or Saturday and like posting about, oh, I absolutely loved it. I'm like, I don't get that feeling from it. Running is pretty cool. It's almost become fashion. There is this disconnect between that side of things, more commercial and for the masses, and then still that elite end, which is a shame, because you don't get that in football. Every time I post a piece of content, it's like a lottery ticket. And if that piece of content does well from my account size, that's more people that get to find something new out about running that they never knew before. My name's Canaan Solomon, and I guess a bit about myself. I guess the reason why I'm here, it's a running podcast, so I guess I might as well talk a bit about my running, my background. Basically, used to run at a pretty decent level, international level, and sort of fell out of love with the sport. Typical same old sob stories that a young athlete has, injuries and things like that. And yeah, pulled away from the sport because of injuries, falling out of love with it, and decided a few months back that I was missing a lot of stuff from my life. Having done something since you were like 10 years old, up until the age of 23, I believe it was when I retired. It just becomes a part of you, and you start to believe that you hate this thing, and actually it's really something that gives you some stability and just some routine to your life. And I tried to fill that hole with trying to make money, because I was I'm a PT as well. So I thought, I'm going to go push the online PT stuff and do things like that. And none of that really filled the gap. I thought, I'll put on a bit of muscle, which a lot of skinny runners like to do after they've retired. There's that, especially with guys, it's like you've gone through your whole adolescent teen years being sort of smaller than your average person because you're running all the time. Yeah. And sort of turned to that, and even that didn't fill the void. I put on a decent bit of muscle and didn't fill the void, and I just thought, you know what, it's always been an ego thing for me. Having been naturally good at something from a young age, you sort of attach your worth to how good you are at the thing, and then that for me just sort of disguised my love for it, just in the pure form of just running and actually enjoying it. So I always just believed that I just liked it because I was good at it, and come to figure out that I don't have to be trying to be an Olympian to enjoy running, which is, I guess, the appeal for most people, 99% of people, because most people aren't going to be an Olympian. And I've sort of found that joy in it like everyone else. So that's kind of my story of my sort of social media stuff and things like that.
Yeah, man, I want to get onto so much. I think let's start with kind of stepping away from the sport and the roads that led to you doing that. Mm-hmm. You said you ran since you were 10. You were talented naturally, but obviously injuries came into play. So that decision to step away from the sport, how was that made? And that must have been quite difficult, seeing that it was part of your identity in essence.
Yeah. So I think it's a difficult thing for anyone. I think a lot of people around me and a lot of people that just know me or know of me probably would have seen it as premature, like that I should have stuck it out. And at that time, it's just this time in life where I'm not getting paid enough from what I'm doing. And just to be completely candid, it's just like one of those things, financial, when you're in your 20s, it's like, well, you got find your career path, you got to buy your house, you got to start settling down, or thinking about settling down, set yourself up for the future as such. And I think that pressure just got on top. Like, it was just a bit like, I'm injured all the time. I haven't ran for like 3 seasons, I believe, 3 or 4 seasons. So even though I stopped at 23 officially, I hadn't raced since I was probably about 20 years old. So for me, it was just like, I've lost the routine of even doing the thing of competing. So for me, it was like, screw this. I don't want to do it anymore. And yeah, I sort of made a very sort of rash decision. I don't think I regret the decision to come away from a competitive level, because I feel like at the time I was looking at people that were 5, even 10 years beyond me in age, and thinking they're still sticking around, and I respect it 100% wholeheartedly. But it's just like, what is that doing for your life outside of sport? Like, unfortunately, we live in a world where you need to earn money, and you need to enjoy what you're doing. So part of me, I'm it's not all about money and things like that, but for me, it was a bit of a decision of, well, I'm hating it. I hate it. I don't enjoy running. I used to sort of not despise, but maybe envy in a way, seeing your normal person who just likes to, or even what you call like a weekend warrior, going out on their run on a Sunday or Saturday and like posting about, oh, I absolutely loved it. I'm like, I don't get that feeling from it, because for me, it was
Yeah.
just either tied to the pressure of trying to be fit so I could compete. And then even then, half the time I'd be in some sort of pain in my Achilles or my hamstring or whatever it might be at the time. It would just be hell. I hate it. So it's like, for me, it's like, you don't even like it. You think you don't like it because of injuries and the pressure. Um, so then is the juice even worth the squeeze? So for me, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to come away from it. And I didn't regret the decision. I still don't regret the decision to stop competition, but I think I should have just carried on running for fun. But I had to
Mm.
realize that I do actually find it fun in the first place by coming away for a good few years and then starting again. So yeah, it was a hard decision. It wasn't easy, but I made it very quickly. I'm just a bit like that sometimes.
I think as well, like it's it's all well and good, I guess, saying, I wish I kind of had carried on for fun.
Mm.
But what it does feel like you've done a little bit, and I think this is what you're doing brilliantly by sharing your story on social. And I'll put all the links in the bio to this. If you don't follow the Instagram account, go and follow it. It's class. But
Thank
what feels quite refreshing is it almost looks like you hit the reset button. Do you know
you.
what I mean? On running, like you had that for that first period of your life, and then kind of had this moment where you're like, right, let's reset, recalibrate, and we go again.
Mm.
I think it would have been really difficult just to drop out of competition and go straight into enjoyment. Do you think that
Yeah.
would be the case?
100%. Like it was. I'm not gonna lie. Like I have, when it comes to running in other aspects of life, a lot less so. But when it comes to running, ego's massive. Like
Yeah.
my ego is massive, and I still believe deep down that is something that an athlete does need, especially at those sort of middle distances, which was what I used to compete at, like a 8 or 1500. There's a lot of tactics. There's a lot of speed and endurance and all these different abilities you need, and you need to have that belief and almost that borderline ego, in the sense of like, I believe I'm better than other people, and I think you do carry that a little bit. So for me, dropping that ego in the space of, right, now I'm competing and now I'm quitting, so that's it. Ego's gone. I don't care if I'm on a Sunday run. I think I did a video about it recently, like on a Sunday run or just on a gentle jog, and someone next to you that you don't know might be on like a session or something, or they just might be really new to running, not understanding that you shouldn't have done all your runs and go 100%. They might run past you, and it's that ego to be like, doesn't matter. Whereas then, if I was still running for fun, I would have just been blasting. I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to show this person because I think I'm a bit. So there's so many things that I would have battled with, that it probably would have been up to this point, like 2.5 years on anyway, before I even was able to drop the ego. So I think just coming away from it completely, like you say, hitting that reset button for me was just like, there's no expectation, or even I have expectations of myself, but in the sense of just for enjoyment. Like I fit the training in where I can around working and things like that. And yeah, just sort of having the unfair advantage of having done it before, and now it's which I'm sure we'll get onto. Like running has become cool in the last 5-6 years, which is sick, because like I truly believe it's going to benefit a Canaan, that 22, 23-year-old Canaan that's struggling. And now there's more sort of social media presence. There's more general population have an interest in running. I think there can only be a good thing down the line for the elite end. So yeah, it would have been hard anyway, like you say. But like I said, I've just hit that. Yeah, there's a pretty good way of putting it. Like I've just hit a reset button on my whole running experience. It's like a second life of running. So that's yeah, it's just so far so good. It's fun, and I'm enjoying it a lot more than I was the tail end of the last one. So
Do you ever have to check that ego? Do you ever have to like say you gave the example of the session, then like you are out on a session and something does happen and you think,
Yeah,
I could do this. Do you ever have to sort of
it's a good
remind
question.
yourself that
Yeah.
you're doing it for fun?
Um, yeah. So like, I did like a little weekend. Uh, what did I do? Like I thought a little 5K the other week.
Yeah.
Everyone turns up every Saturday. It's one of them, and I raced it because it's a race. I mean, it's participation now, isn't it? A lot of people.
It's a race.
You know,
It's
you
a
know.
race.
I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention what it is
Yeah,
because
yeah, man. Yeah. So you did a, was it 1609 at Parkrun, was it?
there we
Is
go.
that
So I
right?
can say
Yeah,
park. I
yeah,
didn't know
okay. You
because
can't
I
go yet.
wasn't sure if it's. No, so I
Yeah.
did a park run on Saturday. Not yeah, a couple of weeks ago, and so yeah. Cut a long story short, I think I ran 1609, and I'm very aware that people would look at that time and be like, "Oh gosh, that's super fast! Like you must be taking this serious." And but I raced it because it is a race, like we said there. However, there's that competitive side I think you need in that sort of that sort of atmosphere. You because that could be 20, 30 seconds. That competitive edge that you've just sort of brought into the race, it could benefit you 20, 30 seconds. You're going to run faster. So in that sense, but in when it comes to training, I would say at the moment I've done a lot of the stuff on my own. I've hopped in and out back at tail end of last year, trying to sort of kind of rejoin my old group. My old coach Craig Winrow, he's an Olympian. I can't remember which Olympics, like 1996, I think. So he's at the elite end, and he's very gets excited because I pulled away. He didn't want me to stop the sport, so he's a bit, oh, you're getting back into it. And I'm just always trying to sort of, steady him a little bit. Like, listen, I'm just doing it for fun. So if I'm in that environment, it's sort of you'd have to settle your ego anyway, because these guys are, even if the level that they're at now, let's say when I was competing I would be in front of them or wherever it would be in training, you still have to check their ego because like they're doing it properly. They're doing, like, I'm part-timer now, I'm just doing it for fun. So I haven't had to check it in training, anything like that. I've done one part run so far, so that's the only competitive environment that I've been in, and I think bringing that to that environment is fine. But in training, no, like on my easy and steady runs and things like that, there's been situations where I've had, maybe a guy that's at least 30 years my elder and just breathing heavy and blasting past me. And then, a couple of miles later, they're in the bin. But there's that checking the ego. Back in the day, if I'd have just quit, I think I'll just be competitive and, have to try and prove to this person who doesn't even know I exist, doesn't even know me, that I'm a more superior runner than them. It's like, it's stupid. And when I think of it that way, it's just like, he's going to go home and think, oh yeah, I tried to beat this guy at the park earlier and he ran faster than me. He's probably not going to care that much. It might bruise his ego and actually, whatever it might be. So now I'm just trying to do everything properly, trying to run to what I find easy for my easy runs. If I want to push it on a session, I'll push it on a session and just sort of go from there. Really, there's no, like I say, no expectation of myself, and I'm just accepting my benchmark. So I'm using the wearables a little bit. I have my views on those, which I guess we could talk about. But yeah, I'm trying to use science as much as I can and look at what my threshold might be, because obviously I haven't done any lab testing and things like that. So I'm just trying to work out what zones are what for me at the moment, and just accepting it and go, do you know what? Maybe you can't easy run at 6 flat minute miling or 6:20-minute miling anymore. Maybe I'll be able to do that at some point, but at the moment, that's just not what you're capable of doing. So going out and running that pace on an easy run would just be silly, and it's just all ego. Yeah. And if I want to improve, I need to start from pretty much the bottom, start from scratch. So far, so good on that side of things. So yeah, check it I haven't had to check it in training, but in races, I'm just going to let it go and just do what I do. Try and compete within reason. Not going to try and beat someone that's just far more trained than me.
I think as well, like, people sometimes look at competitiveness as a negative thing, where I think it's just the kind of competitiveness you ooze, if that makes sense, in the sense of like, you're to be competitive with yourself is incredibly important, right? Because I think to be competitive with yourself just means you're trying to get the best out of yourself.
Yeah,
It's when
100%.
that competition is built in ego that there can be problems. Like you say,
Yeah,
it's like just stepping away from that side of things, but striving to be the best that you can be in this space that you're in now, which I
yeah,
think is something you're doing really well by putting out on social media. You said something really interesting about um, how running is different now. Like,
mm,
and I would imagine there's no one probably better suited to talk about that than you, who was in that environment of a GB vest when they were younger, came through all of that when running wasn't as quote unquote
no,
cool as it is now. And now
yeah,
we're into this space where it's like, oh my God, like if I do the right things here, I could actually make a really good living from
yeah,
making content in the running
yeah,
space.
yeah,
That's got to feel polar opposite.
yeah. It's like, for me, growing up in where I'm originally from I'm from Essex originally, a place called Harlow in Essex, and it's Essex is a county in general. The mindset in some places is very limited, and I just found it funny. Like I used to go out, if I would ever try and dare go for a run near where I live, with the fear of seeing my mates or whatever it might be out just doing normal teenage things. Uh yeah, he's like I'd have to hide back then. And now I'm seeing those same sort of people like doing, you know, doing half marathons and on this health and wellness thing. And I'm just like, the times have changed. Like, it's not embarrassing to go out for a run. I'm not having to hide from people or change my route because I think my mates are going to be around the corner. And I kind of think that can only be a good thing for one.
Yeah.
But it's just yeah, it's I've seen it coming. I've seen this sort of progression. You started to see people post about running, and it has, exploded. And again, I have no hard feelings towards that. I think there's a little bit of a negative uh, connotation sometimes when some like the more elite end guys talk about influencers, or they talk about just people on content creators that make running content. And I think they just see it as like, oh, well, this is our thing. Like, this is our thing that we did when it wasn't cool. And now all of you normal people, they would call it, like coming into the space, and you don't have no clue about what you're talking about and things like that. And it's just like, there is an elitism to it. I think there is a very broad spectrum of what's just pure just elitism and just sort of cutting people out, and they're not worthy, they're not fast, they can't run a sub 20-minute 5K, so I'm not, they're not cool. But then there's also the side of, if that could be sort of communicated to more elite guys. So even with what I'm surrounded by, some of my friends are still very much in the elite end, professional runners, and even trying to explain to them how social media now is just as important for them as it is for the content creators and things like that. It's trying to break that through to them. Like, just running fast isn't going to probably pay your bills at the end of the day. Like, you should make some content, you should do things like that, and it's only a good thing, because if you care so much about the wrong information being put out there by random people on the internet, well, why don't you do something? Why don't you put some content out as someone that is doing it for a living, doing it at the top end, and then communicating that in the right way? And I think that's the issue that we have. Like, we have this big disconnect. Like, you've got all these hundreds of thousands of people that turn out on a weekend to do, it might be a run through, or it might be a park run, it might be a half marathon, whatever it is, all these events. The vast majority of those people, if you ask them who one of the top 5 fastest people at the distance they've just ran is in the world, they wouldn't be able to give you a single name. And it's like mind blowing, this disconnect from, yes, we've come a long way. Like, it is cool now. Running is pretty cool. It's almost become fashion. Like, there's like a weird, in a cool way, like a good way. Like, it's very
Yeah.
fashionable now. There's that sort of aesthetic to running now, like I don't know, the cool vests and the shades and the hats, and it's sick. Like, I think it's class. Like, I'm nothing against it. People might cringe it. I think it's sick. But there is this disconnect between that side of things, more commercial and for the masses, and then still that elite end, which is a shame, because you don't get that in football. Yeah, how many people do you get
No.
turning out on a Sunday league? How many people play Sunday league and know who all the Premier League football players are? So that it's a thing in other sports, just not a thing in running, which is weird. How many people play rugby for their local club? They're going to know the England squad. They're going to know the top players at the whatever it might be. I don't follow rugby. I'm terrible. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Like with running, it's just not that. You just don't see that. People might know Usain Bolt, Mo Farah. That's it, mate. Oh, I don't know. Kipchoge. That's the only people they might know. Other than that, it's like they wouldn't have a clue. And they do it every week, and they do it for a hobby. They run socially, go to run clubs, and it's just weird. Like it's always been weird to me how that disconnects that we have. But hopefully over time that sort of comes together. There are a lot of good creators now that have a little bit of an audience that are sort of communicating that across, and they're saying, "Oh, this guy just won the 10K at the Valencia, whatever it might be," and then they'll break that down and explain how fast that is, what they've just ran, and put it in layman's terms to everyone, which I think can only be a good thing. But yeah, it's definitely become more cool, which I have no complaints about. I think there are some elite end runners. I won't put myself in that category 100% now. I'm just someone who runs and does it for fun. But having that background, it's very easy to be very bitter and be like, look at the sport and be like, oh wow, what could it have been like if it was like this 10 years ago for me? Could I have made more of a social media page or things like that? But you didn't. So at the end of the day, you can sit there and think about that, but times were different back then. And I think it's just exciting to see the state of running. So yeah,
man, it's so interesting you mentioned football there, because when you were talking I was thinking of exactly that in my head. It's almost like when you look at football as a sport, if you looked at it as like a pie chart, right? That tiny little slither is going to be the elite game.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have people that play like a League One standard, League Two standard, and like you've got every little part gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you've probably got the biggest part is the people that play Sunday League, the people that just enjoy it, the people play it growing up 5-a-side on a Thursday night, like. And I think what's happened with running is that it's exploded so fast, nothing has managed to keep up.
No.
So I think we're in that phase now where everybody's kind of working out their space in this new ecosystem that is being created. And it's just going to take a little bit for everything to catch up. As you say, I think now elite athletes coming through now probably see the worth of social. It's kind of the athletes that maybe are bridging that gap. That it's kind of it must be pretty weird for them to see what's happening.
Yeah, it's like what is this? This monster, this thing that's coming along, and then they find out that just from a monetary point of view, they're probably looking at these content creators or influencers that might be on a higher retainer than they are in their whole. And then a professional athlete might be in their whole actual salary, and it's like, well, that's not fair. I've even been in conversations with people and just trying to explain, like, a lot of the time it's the value that you offer a brand as well. Like a lot of these elite guys, running is a big sport. Participation levels are massively high. People seem to be enjoying doing actually running themselves rather than watching it, which is fine for now. There are a lot of cool events like RunThrough that are sort of the participation levels are high, but now it's just about trying to convert that to people watching the Diamond Leagues, people watching the British champs like at the weekend just gone, and it's just about like trying to bridge that gap and trying to get people to understand that even though it's big, you can't just run fast. Like I was trying to explain to even some of my friends that might be in contract disputes with brands, and it's like, oh, how have I not been able to re-sign, but this person they can't even break X amount of time for a 5K or whatever it might be, and then they're able to do this, and it's like, but they've got 100,000 followers and they're posting every single day and they're interacting with their audience, and they might not be as good as you, but they're relaying information at a far greater rate than you are about running, because at the end of the day, people care about themselves. Like when people start running, they buy a new pair of running shoes, they want to get faster themselves, so they're going to follow this person, try and get some advice, get some tips, and if that person is likable, puts the information across in the right way, they're gonna provide way more value to a brand than an athlete who, say, posts once a month when they race. No one knows who they are, and it's unfortunate that's the state of the world. You can't just run fast and go off into the mountains and train hard and come back and race. But that's just how it is. Like it's
Yeah.
that is the sport. But I'm just quite excited in terms of the state that it's in, because it has, like you say, we've got through the first stage. We've figured out that everyone likes to actually run themselves. So if they figured out that people like to do it, then we just need to figure out how to get people to like to watch it. And once that's
Yeah.
figured out, then the elite guys are going to be able to see the fruits of that labor. But they need to get on the social side as well, which is a hard thing to try and get them to do. And they've got to focus on their training in the day. They're not an influencer, so there's that too. So
Yeah. I think it's that marketability, isn't it? And I think now brands are seeing the marketability of some of these events as well. We've just seen the Keeley Classic. Obviously, I think things like that are going to become really big. You got Grand Slam starting this year as well. It's like all of these things, and some of them will work and some of them will fall by the wayside, but I think we'll find something that works in this
there'll be a
space. And
formula that works, and then once
yeah,
that's figured out, then it will just be sort of rinse and repeat, and then you can only explode from there, which will be exciting to watch.
it's interesting as well, because I think speaking to people outside of the running space, like even if people like family members or friends or people that don't quite get it or aren't in it, it's
Mm-hmm.
like I think they think that this is the only growth phase. Like the thing that's
Yeah,
just happened over the last 5 years is like what's going to happen.
yeah,
But to me, it seems like this is just the match.
yeah.
I think the
It
actual
really is.
exponential growth is to come.
Yeah, because if you look at the potential exponential growth of social media, because it's the same sort of, it's like a microcosm of social media in general. People think that, yeah, no, it's had its big boom, but if you look at the forecast for what social media is going to do over the next 10 years, or even just by like 2027, in a couple of years, it's going to expand exponentially. So running is like a little microcosm of that, because people think, oh, it's boomed and that's going to be it. But there are so many more phases, I believe, and I kind of know, I'm pretty sure that it is going to boom from there, because it is, in terms of, for the masses, it's probably the most accessible sport, because it is just, for most able-bodied people, running is the most accessible sport. You put one foot in front of the other and you run, and all you need is a pair of running trainers. And even then, you don't even need to confuse it that much. You just find a pair that's comfy for you and just get out and run. So there's that aspect to it. Yes, there are a lot of things that like to complicate. A lot of people like my like to complicate running and make it seem more complicated than it is, but it is just putting one foot in front of the other in different ways. So you might do the majority of your mileage slow, and that's just doing it a bit slower. One foot in front of the other, just slower than you would do if you were going to race. And then eventually, whenever you do a race, it's just putting one foot in front of the other as fast as you can for that set distance, and that is it. So, and I think the fact that people find that enjoyable, because we all do, um, it just says that it's just the beginning, because there's just going to be more and more people that take it up, because realizing that, oh, I don't even have to be, I don't have to be that skillful. It's like so accessible. People that weren't good at sports at school, at PE, that got picked last for football, netball, whatever it might be, these people are still able to happily go out for a run on a weekend with their friends. And obviously, we've all got different starting points of ability, but to an extent, it's an even playing field. Like, you can train yourself up and get aerobically fitter, and you can run faster than the jock, or whatever you call it, that was on the football team and was the best at all the sports, because there's that skill aspect that's kind of taken away. Obviously, at the elite end, there's tactics and stuff like that, but just the pure wholehearted just running at its very, very simplest form, it's a pretty level playing field. And you see it a lot of time now in the last few years with some guys that have got to that professional level that were not that good when they were younger. They've just followed the science, and they've trained, and they've kept consistent and injury free, and they've got to a level where they're professional. So you don't have to be even that talented to do it, and it's not even about trying to get to that top level. It's just about the accessibility side of it. Pretty much everyone can do it. You just need a pair of running trainers, and you just step out your door. you don't have to go, you don't have to have a park. You can go, go on the roads, go on the streets. It's all different terrains, and just the different types of running that there are anyway. You've got all the different tribes of, trail runners, you've got ultra runners, you've got people that like to run a fast 5. There's so many different things out there. So yeah, I think it's just the beginning. Events wise, coverage wise, we just got to figure it out, and then I think, yeah, only way is pretty much up from here.
Consistency and enjoyment, isn't it? If you're starting now, it's like being consistent and enjoying it. And I think in your videos, one thing that is like so easy to see is how much you're enjoying it again now, which must be really refreshing from where you were. Like, there was a video of one of your boys meeting you on the bike and just blaring some tunes, and it's just like those sorts of things. It's like it must feel for you quite refreshing to have that back.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, shout out to Gil Banks. That was my boy on the bike. Brought the JBL speaker to the function.
Love that.
Yeah, it is. No, you're right. Like, it is really enjoyable to actually just be doing something that I knew deep down, or had a feeling that I loved, but just couldn't work out for what reasons. And I thought just because I was good at it, like, because that, like I said earlier, that ego side of it. But now just being able to I'm not getting paid from it. I'm not benefiting from it in any way, shape, or form at this moment in time. I'm just doing it for fun and I'm documenting it. And to be able to have a thing, I think most people need a thing. And I think that's why everyone's falling in love with running, because I feel like most people have realized that the mundaneness of life, of go to school, go to uni, get a degree, so you can get a good job, so then you can just pay your mortgage, get married, and that's like your main event, your wedding day, and then everything's just down from there. I think we've all woken up to like, oh, that's way more to life. Like, why can't we have hobbies outside of our job? Why can't we do things that actually a hobby that doesn't involve maybe having to have to drink a load of alcohol at the weekend to de-stress? Like, maybe doing something that's probably a net positive for our body can be something that's fun as well. And I think we've all sort of started with, I think that's just what's happened in the last 5 years, I'd say, post COVID. It's just been this boom of, oh, I actually appreciate being outside, and actually it's quite nice to have health, and I can have health in a way that, I can train myself to be healthy in a way that doesn't involve me hating it. Because I think for the longest time, running was seen as this punishment that people had to do in PE, or run an extra few laps or whatever it was. And it's like, oh, I hate running, it's long. But actually, I think people are coming to realize that it can actually be quite fun. Like, and it can be such a social thing. You've got all these, you've got more bloody run clubs in London now than you've got people. It's mad. But it's something that it can just be fun. Like, you can just meet up with your mates, go for a run, enjoy it, not really have that much expectations if you don't want to. If you want to take it more serious, you can. We've got that, in between crowd of like anywhere from club runners to like semi-elite runners who have taken it a lot more seriously. And there's always something. That's the thing, like, with running, there's always something to look forward to. If you train, you can race, and if you race, there's always going to be another race to look forward to. So that, I think, is what we're all. I guess I took it for granted from the age of 10, and that's why, I wouldn't find myself as bored as other kids would, because I'm just thinking in the background, I've got to train for this thing that I'm going to do at the weekend or whatever, and it was just what you did. And I think, like I say, I think a lot of us have just woken up to the fact that on average, we've got 80, 90 years or whatever is on this earth, and to spend most of it working is a little bit like us, a little bit of a bummer. But we've got a lot of time outside of our jobs and sleeping and living, and we might as well fill that time with something that you can enjoy and is probably going to help you live longer. So, that's what I'm loving about it, because it keeps me healthy, it keeps me from aging too quickly, hopefully, and we'll see how we go. So far, just enjoying the social aspect of seeing my mates or pop into the track down the road and just seeing them and appreciating what they're doing as well, and not being jealous, to be fair, because when I see some people on the start line of a race, like I watched some of the guys doing the 800 this weekend at the British Champs indoors, and I was like, I'm happy I'm not there. So I'm still settled with that decision, not competing, because the nerve side, the stress, that it all piles up. But so far, I'm just, like you say, I think it's pretty clear, and it is try to be as authentic as possible with what I'm showing. Like I don't want to fake. I don't want to be that guy that's like got the camera out and having to fake a smile for because I've got runners high and I enjoy it. Like that is a real thing, and you get that naturally. So why not just whip the camera out? I've got luckily, like I said there, I've got my mate Gilbanks that he's quite into social media as well. So I'm lucky that he just gets the camera out with me and just film the process and the ins and outs of what goes on. And I think there's never there's never a barrier to what content you can create as well. There's so many different things I could probably think about posting in the next year or so. So that's the exciting part, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
I feel like I've got you at the start, which I'm dead excited about, because it means that when you're up at those 6-figure digit followers, you can get you back on, man. Because it does feel like when you are watching your content, or you're kind of seeing the schedule you're posting on, and all these things that you can get into the weeds about when it comes to social, it feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's almost like because you understand consistency, and I think a lot of people that understand consistency, it probably comes from something they've done in their past. And for you, you're an elite athlete, and the most important thing with being an elite athlete is consistency. And it feels like all you're doing now is putting that elite mentality into something a little bit different, whilst enjoying the thing that you were elite at before, if that makes sense. So it's you're just treating it something else in your life in that way.
It's essentially, you bang on, mate. Like it's just for me, again, I keep bringing him up, but one of my best mates, Tom Gilbanks, he told me he's into a completely different niche of social media, and he's done really well for himself, and respect to him. And he grinds way more than I do. Like I'll take the credit from what you just said, the consistency wise, but he's like, twice a day, every day. And for me, he told me pretty much like, you just think of it like a lottery ticket. It's actually not him that came up with it. There was a guy on social media that did it, but he was relaying it to me. And it's like imagine every single piece of content you post is like a lottery ticket. And for me, I'm going to be completely candid. Like, obviously, I'd love to grow on social media. I think everyone nowadays wants to grow on social media and become an influencer and do partnerships with brands and stuff like that. That's really cool. But the other half of the reason why I want to post is because I think there is sort of a little space for me in the sense of I have a background in it, but I'm also not in it anymore. So I have that perspective of seeing both sides and starting again as well, and sort of relating to someone that's just starting out on their journey in running. So for me, it was just about every time I post a piece of content, it's like a lottery ticket. And if that piece of content does well for my account size, that's more people that get to maybe find something else, find something new out about running that they never knew before, or maybe reaffirm a belief they might have had. And again, social media, the way it works nowadays, they don't have to just believe me. They can look out there and see various other people posting the same sort of thing. But I think from my sort of unique perspective, it is just about trying to find a schedule, because I work full time as well, and just trying to post as much stuff as I can and put it out there, and just, like I say, have fun with it. Because like at the moment, I do it for free. I don't benefit at all. Like there's no person behind the scenes that's paying me to do this. It's just fun. So, and I've always liked creating videos, and it brings me back to when I was competing. Because I remember when I used to be supported by a big brand, so Nike. And I remember saying to my friend, like, we should start YouTube. Like, I was like, start a YouTube channel about this and like show what my kit drops. And like, I had all these ideas. And even before that, when I was just starting out in running and I used to scooter, I used to go to the skate park on my scooter or my BMX or skates. And I used to like make these like sponsor me videos. So I've always loved making videos about what it is I'm doing. At different stages, different motives for that. That back then it was just I wanted free scooter parts or whatever it was, bits, whatever it was. But yeah, I've always liked the idea of making content. So when I say about elite athletes having to make content, they don't have to, because not everyone wants to. Not everyone wants to show the ins and outs of what they're doing. But for me, I just enjoy it. Like I'm a bit of a geek. I like camera gear. I like to go on YouTube and search how to make a video look a certain way. I kind of enjoy the editing process, believe it or not, of making like a YouTube video or a short, and I also really have found a love for running again. So for me, it's just a no brainer. It fills my free time. So whether it, like you say, I grow exponentially or I just stay as I am, like I'm pretty happy with how it's going, because at least when I'm 80 years old, this will probably be on the cloud somewhere, or I can save it all, and I can have a little watch back at it and go, this is what I used to do when I was able to actually do it. Not that you can't run when you're 80, because people can, but I won't be as able to at that stage. And it'll just be nice to look back at, this is what I was doing when I was 26. Like, I was making videos about running and I was doing it for fun, because really that's all that's going to matter at that time when you're near the end. Not to be morbid, but it'd be quite nice to look back at different things I was doing and documenting at the time. So that's the main goal of it at the moment is just, like you say, try and be as consistent as I can. Lovely that you gave me that compliment, because the last week I've not been consistent, because I've had a week, a lot of stuff behind the scenes. But yeah, like I say, at the moment, I'm really just enjoying both sides of it. I'm injury free, touch wood, and that's the main thing for me. Was just about avoiding too many injuries, niggles, and stuff like that, because that's what sucked the life out of it for me. But the beautiful thing for me at the moment is, one of the best things when you get injured, for most injuries, is rest and rehab. And when I was competing, the pressure of having a race coming up or an event that you're trying to peak for kind of ruins that, because you can go to the physio, you can see whoever it is, your therapist, whatever it might be, but there's still that date, that pressure, and you have to be right for that time. So you'd end up just forcing an injury, forcing your way for an injury. Whereas nowadays, the reason why I'm enjoying it is because if something pops up and it's like, oh, I can just be super, super cautious and stop running for 3 weeks and just go to the gym every other day. And if I want to do some cross training, I can. I hate it, but if I want to do it, I could do it. If I don't want to do it, no pressure. I'll just build back up again. And that's what I'm really, really enjoying this time about it. It's a bit of the wuss way out, but I don't mind. It's for me, it's just fun.
I don't know if you can call it the wuss way out if you're keeping your body 100. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
I like the way you kind of talked about the social, then saying about the consistency. That's the same thing, isn't it? Like, if you need to take a step back because other parts of your life happen, you need to take a step back because other parts of your
100%.
life happen. It's like not beating yourself up in running or athletics or whatever sport you do, and not beating yourself up in your, I guess, personal endeavors as well.
Yeah.
We'll finish with this, Mum. When you were, back a couple of years ago, deciding to check out from competition, just hating running, did you ever think you'd be back in love with it like this?
No, definitely not. I thought that, I don't know, from at the time, like, I was very aware that money doesn't buy you happiness, and that whether went and got a 9 to 5 job and grinded away in the office and lived comfortably financially, I knew I wouldn't be happy with that. However, I just thought I'll find something else. Like, I'll build some muscle, or I'll do something else. I don't know what it was. I played a bit of. At one point, I was doing some like high rock simulation training, and don't want to do that. It's awful, awful stuff. So yeah, like I knew that I'd have to fill the void with something, but I didn't realize that I could just fill the void with doing the exact same thing that I was already doing, just not putting the pressure on having to make it my career and my life. So I would say that no, I didn't expect to ever like come back and be doing it like this, and running most days and building up my mileage again, and sort of tracking how many miles I've done this week, and having a session in mind to do on a, I don't know, on a Saturday morning, whatever it might be. I didn't think I'd be doing to this capacity, but or even showing up and doing a 5K and racing that and trying something different to what I used to do. So no, I didn't think I'd ever be back in this sort of position of doing it and then doing it for fun, especially. So like when I immediately quit, I was a bit like, oh, I might get dragged back in a couple months' time, because it won't be too late to just build fitness back up from that point. But at this stage, no, I wouldn't think that 2.5 years on that I would have been back trying to just trying to run and be as good as, like I say, like as good as I can be with my current circumstances, posting on social media and working full time. Like, no, I definitely didn't expect to be doing it like this, because I tried to hate on it so much. I tried to be like, oh, it's so nerdy, like, you know, all these people that talk about running, they would talk about running, like, because obviously you're surrounded by runners, and it's like, oh guys, can we talk about something else other than running? It's so boring. Like, in actual fact, now I'll go to dinner with my mates and we'll just talk about running, and it's like, well, this is the thing that I was kind of hating on, but that's because I was bitter towards it, and there was that sort of resentment of like, oh, there's more to life than running. There's way more to life than running, don't get me wrong, but if you want to talk about running all the time, you want to have it as your hobby, you want to run 1,000,000 miles a week and be healthy, like if it's healthy for you, then you do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's got their thing. And it just so happens that a very common thing to have nowadays is running. People are going out 5K, 10Ks, marathons, ultra marathons. Some people are going straight from starting running to running an ultra marathon, like, and skipping out on all of them. Like, there's all different journeys to have. And I wouldn't have imagined my journey would be back doing it again, but you know, albeit in a slightly different capacity, but it is what it is now. But no, yeah, to answer your question, no, I didn't imagine I'll be back running at all.